let's do it.
Great. Well, welcome everybody to the third Chop and Chat with Max and Nat, live from the Yale New Haven Health Teaching Kitchen. I am Max Goldstein. I am a chef and a registered dietitian. I am one of our instructors here at the Yale New Haven Health Teaching Kitchen in North Haven. And then I am joined with my co-host, Natalie.
Natalie Smith. I'm one of the oncology dietitians at Smilo, and I run the survivorship nutrition clinic, and then also integrative medicine. I'm the dietitian on that clinic as well.
Okay, awesome. And again, thank you so much for joining tonight. If you've joined one of these before, you'll kind of know how the flow works, but if not, Natalie and I are going to spend the next hour chatting and shopping. We are going to be talking a lot about, I think number one, we talk about food and how delicious it can be and how nice it is to share things. And we talk a lot about the flavors, but then the nice part is that food that is delicious can also be really good for us. And that's where Natalie especially brings her expertise in talking about how these foods can really help you. What would you say that it's appropriate to say these foods can help you fight cancer?
Yeah. And it's hard to, people get overwhelmed with implementing nutrition information that they learn, through a dietitian, through the hospital, through their physician. So this is a way to like bring us together and kind of relax. And, I'm not wearing an apron. We're kind of just like, it's loose, it's relaxed. So we want people to feel like you can do this at home too. Give you some easy, simple tips. We'll have some back and forth conversation. You guys can absolutely ask questions throughout and we'll try to get to those. But yeah, good nutrition, nourish our bodies, reduce risk of cancer, all the good stuff.
Yeah. And have fun while doing it. We're going to try at least. So we are making, we got a couple dishes tonight. On theme, you probably saw on the poster, the flyer. We're doing kind of summer barbecue recipes. I know we are getting towards the end of summer, but we do have Labor Day weekend coming up. And so the idea being that while it's still nice and maybe we're still going to barbecues, like what are some things that we could bring, make in advance, bring to make at, the potluck or whatever that it's not gonna cause us stress. It's not gonna break the bank, but also I feel like social gatherings can be really stressful for certain people who have, whether it's dietary restrictions, they're trying to eat in a specific way for their health, right? It can be really overwhelming to be like, well, everyone else is eating, X, Y, Z, but I'm trying to eat something that's going to be a little bit more nourishing for me. So again, the goal with these recipes being they're going to be delicious, but they're also going to be good for us, and everyone will be able to enjoy them. It's not just for people who are fighting cancer.
Absolutely. And this could even be, if you have side effects that are lingering after active treatment, or you're on medications for a cancer diagnosis and you can't tolerate certain foods, we want you to know, like, you can swap things out. We can replace ingredients. We can make it easier to tolerate. We just want to help people enjoy food after a diagnosis, during, whenever. Food is fuel.
Absolutely.
It's essential. So.
Yeah. So we're doing kind of a main and then two sides, I think would be an accurate way of describing it. We are going to be doing an oven-baked barbecue chicken, and then we're going to be doing two side dishes. We have a really nice like purple orange slaw, and we're also going to be doing a potato salad, all of which I think conjures images of like lovely barbecue food. But again, we're going to be making some kind of changes here and there so that it's really health promoting. So I want to start by talking about that oven-baked barbecue chicken. I'm just going to zoom in on my cutting board here. So you can see I have in my bowl here a couple of skinless bone-in chicken thighs. And we're going to be cooking these in the oven. Before I even talk about that, I always want to make sure that I am seasoning my food. So I'm just going to do a little bit of olive oil drizzled over those thighs. And then I've just got some salt and pepper here, keeping it pretty simple for starters. And I'm wearing a gloved hand to go ahead and really mix all of that in. And then while I am doing that, I think the first thing we could talk about, Natalie, is like I think are chicken thighs a little divisive? Do people have mixed thoughts on chicken thighs?
They think that because of the darker meat, right, they might not be healthy or not the right choice. But ultimately, we remove the skin to cut back on the fat content, right? Like we've talked about, it's more moist. It's a little bit harder to mess up if you're a little nervous in the kitchen, right?
Absolutely.
It's not going to dry out as quickly. So I think ultimately there's not going to be a perfect meal or a perfect way of eating. There has to be enjoyment. There has to be fun. There has to be flexibility. So I think it's a great option for somebody who's just maybe trying to grill or bake chicken. And, I think it's a great way to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, chicken thigh is way more forgiving. So, that darker meat, I feel like it holds up a little bit better. It doesn't quite dry out as quickly. So if I come back over to my cutting board here, what I've got is a nice roasting pan. I'm going to pop this into my oven. You notice there's some tin foil underneath. That is in case as this chicken drips, which it's going to do. I don't want it like spattering in the oven. I don't want it to get stuck onto my baking dish here. So, the tin foil is going to make for easy cleanup. The less time that we can spend cleaning in the kitchen, I think the better. And then again, just a little bit of salt and pepper and some olive oil on these. I'm gonna pop these into a pretty hot oven. They're going into it at around 450 degrees. Because these are bone-in, they're a little thicker. Grand total cooking time is probably gonna be anywhere from like 35 to 45 minutes. And we will make sure that they are properly cooked by using our meat thermometer at the end. But I'm gonna get these in. I'm gonna start them at about 25 minutes. And at that point, I will take them out of the oven and we're gonna put our barbecue sauce on it. And I think I will hold off on talking about that barbecue sauce for a little while because it's homemade and I think it's really good. So I got to leave you in suspense for just a little while there. So I'm just going to set my timer here so I don't forget about it. I'm pretty good at multitasking, but every so often stuff does get forgotten. So that's in the oven. We've already accomplished like 50% of one of our dishes, and it took me a grand total of 5 minutes there. Do we want to talk a little bit about why we're cooking them in the oven as opposed to grilling them? Yeah. Besides the fact that we're not outside and it's raining. Yeah. Why are we doing it?
So I know I get a lot of questions about this in oncology care, about the safety of grilling, especially in the summertime, early fall when we're outside. We want to be cooking out of the house instead of in the hot kitchen. So really when we're cooking at meat and fish at very high temperatures, there's risk of creating these carcinogens that are linked to increased cancer risk. So one of those ways is they're called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. That's something that's in the flames that can stick to the meat and kind of alter DNA and cause damage and potentially cancer risk. Mm-hmm. And the other way is these heterocyclic amines, they're called, and that's created when they form in the meat when you're cooking meat at a very high temperature. It alters that. So these two things can be avoided by cooking at slower temperatures, avoiding direct contact with the meat and fish with flame, and I don't know what else.
Yeah, no,
did I cover it all?
I think so. I mean, those are a little bit of a mouthful.
It's a lot
to say, right? So I think, what would you say if people are like, well, I like cooking stuff on the grill, but now you're telling me that maybe I shouldn't be cooking on the grill. Like, is there like a middle ground that we can kind of hit, right? Like what are our options?
Ultimately, you want to cook lower and slower, right? Lower temp for a longer period of time, right? Mm-hmm. So you could do a couple of things. You could, again, avoid direct contact between the flame and the meat. So you could cook on the higher rack if you want to. We've talked about using like the copper cover, the grill covers.
Those grill mats, those are really great.
Yep, that can prevent the flame from touching the protein. You can chop the meat up into smaller pieces and mix with veggies to do more of like a stir fry type thing. So it's cooking a little bit more quickly, but lower temperature, less exposure. Marinating.
Yeah, right? Which I think not only is going to add a lot of great flavor to your food, of course, and I think the more flavorful your food is, the more satisfying it's going to be. So you probably don't end up like overeating as much as we maybe otherwise would.
Right.
So the flavor, of course, from the marinade, but then also that little bit of liquid that remains on the meat, like, is gonna prevent some of that really dark, like almost caramelizing that occurs on the meat, which is part of that carcinogenic properties. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. The other thing is we talked about cleaning the rack.
Yes. Right. Yeah, a huge one. Right. So, you cook stuff on the grill and then everything kind of sticks on there and you're like, oh, I'll clean it the next time. Right. Like if you can clean it after that, initial cooking where stuff is starting to stick, that's your best bet. Obviously a cleaner grill, that stuff that's sticking on there is going to now progressively kind of burn and char. And if any of that gets into your food, that could potentially be carcinogenic as well.
Right.
And so making sure that we're frequently cleaning our grill. If you're using one of those like metal or plastic bristle brushes, they're really great for getting your grill clean. if you're gonna clean your grates with that, maybe, obviously while the grill is off, then take a rag and wipe the grates just so like,
You don't want that in your food.
yeah, we're all worried about microplastics now, right? It's let's make one less thing to worry about. Take the extra 30 seconds and actually wipe the grill afterwards. And then we were also talking about making sure that we're oiling the your grill as well. So if you are going to be grilling things still, which did we talk about? You could definitely still grill vegetables.
Yeah,
We'll
so that's
come.
the other one.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. But even if you're grilling meat and vegetables even together, let's say, stuff has a real tendency to stick, right? So we want to make sure that we call it like kind of seasoning our grill, but really just hitting it with a little bit of oil. You could take something like an old kitchen rag, dip it in oil on both sides. You can do this while the grill is off or while it's on. If it's on, maybe you grab this with a pair of tongs, but then just rub it over those grates. It's not going to introduce a ton of fat to your food, but it'll really help prevent sticking. Reducing the sticking is going to help prevent burning, which is the one factor. And then the other factor, when those flames are coming up and touching the meat, if you're feeling like you have to go in with your tongs on the grill and you are like tearing it away and you're squeezing juices out of it, those juices drip and then the meat, the flames flare up, right? So it's going to ultimately, not only will it make your food taste better if you, properly season your grill, but also, your stuff's going to stick less and potentially reduce the carcinogenic properties.
Right. And to go along with just like overall risk reduction when it comes to health is we want people to be consuming more plant-based foods.
Always.
So, also with plants, cooking veggies on the grill, that's not creating the same health risk with altering, right, the way it doesn't do the same thing with vegetables. So,
and why is that? Because it is there's not the
protein.
Protein
and the meat that's being altered.
Okay.
So that's not in the vegetables. So if you were grilling, asparagus, you were grilling zucchini or eggplant, it's not going to contain the same risk. Obviously, the flame touching the food is that, the risk. But ultimately, we want more plants in our diet. So maybe that's the go ahead to cook more corn on the grill, to do more veggies, right? To really load up on those things.
We love corn. People have a tendency to think that corn isn't good for us, but corn's high fiber. It's delicious.
It's like the best.
I've been on like a little bit of like a street corn salad kind of kick. You grill your corn, you slice it up, a little feta cheese in there. It's good. We're not making that tonight. I'm getting distracted. On the stove here, I've got a pot of water coming to a boil. It's blowing steam into my face. And then on my cutting board here, I've got some red potatoes. I cut a few of them in half already. This was the little bag of potatoes that I bought at the grocery store. These were called like red creamer potatoes. But any smaller potato like this is going to get the job done. I'm cutting them in half just because I think they're a little bit more manageable. So I got them like so, and then just one nice clean cut through the middle. You could certainly go smaller into quarters if you wanted to, but I like the halves. So I think we're going to stick with those. And we're doing red potatoes for our potato salad today. When Natalie and I were trying to come up with the recipes, we were kind of going back and forth. Like, do we want to do red potatoes? Do we want to do sweet potatoes? We got some orange into our slaw with some carrots. So I think we were kind of good on our color variety there. But people have a tendency to think that white potatoes, right? Even though these are red, you know what I mean, right? They're white on the inside. That people think those aren't good for them.
Yeah.
Why do we think we have that impression? Yeah.
People say, I eat sweet potatoes. I know white potatoes are the worst, right? Or I only do red potatoes because white potatoes are terrible for your health.
Yeah.
Ultimately, same calorie content, same carbohydrate content. It's a starchy vegetable, right? It's high in potassium. Yeah. We got vitamin C, right? But it's ultimately the same nutrient content, give or take, right? The only difference is the red potatoes have a slightly higher antioxidant content because of that red coloring on the peel. Yeah. So again, white potatoes, totally fine. Red potatoes, great. Sweet potatoes, you've mentioned, do have a little bit more fiber.
Yeah. But they're also a little bit higher in sugar because they're sweet, right?
So for a diabetic, it might be a better option to go for the white potato or the red potato. So we liked implementing some of these little tips and suggestions because we get these questions so often.
Yeah. And I think if we're thinking like traditional potato salad, I should mention, by the way, that pot of water is at a boil. I just threw our potatoes in there. I'm going to cook them until they're fork tender. That's basically all we got to worry about there. we're thinking about potato salad. And I think that conjures images of like potatoes and then a ton of mayonnaise, right? And it's like kind of like, it's a little slop almost, right? Because it slops that onto your plate. So we are doing things a little bit differently that while those potatoes are cooking, we're going to make a slightly different dressing, kind of, sort of like a little bit more of like a Russian potato salad inspired or German potato salad, where it's a little bit more like vinegar and mustard based rather than being that mayonnaise based one.
Lighter.
Yeah, a little bit lighter, and we're gonna load it up with a lot of like nice fresh herby flavor. We're gonna do that in a couple ways. I'm gonna chop up some garlic and then also some dill. This has been like the summer of dill here at the Teaching Kitchen. We've been using it in a lot of recipes because it's bright and it's beautiful. It smells very very like nice and aromatic. It makes me think of pickles without actually having to like now go and buy pickles. I can just use fresh dill. So I'm going to get our garlic minced up here and our dill. I realize, Natalie, I did not set myself up for success over here. Could you grab me a fork off of the cart over there just so I can actually test when these potatoes are fork tender? So to get these cloves of garlic minced, I'm going to rest my knife on top. The handle of my knife is actually off of the cutting board. So I'm resting my knife on top, hand pressed on the blade here, and give it a nice push down. That allows me to come in. I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can maybe see what I'm doing here. I'm going to take all that papery skin off the outside. It kind of cracks, and then we can peel the garlic like so. That being said, I am not opposed to you using quote unquote shortcuts at home when it comes to your garlic. Buy the garlic that's pre-minced in the jar. You know, if that is what's gonna get you some garlic into your dish, which is again is gonna help with the flavoring. The more flavoring we add, the less we're reliant on things like salt or really anything that's kind of ultra processed, right? When we can use fresh ingredients. And I would still consider garlic out of a jar to be a fresh ingredient. So now I got these cloves of garlic here. I'm going to give them a rough chop, right? So just cut them into some large pieces. But I want these to be minced. Mincing means I'm going to get these into really small, irregular pieces. But I want them so small so that they evenly distribute into my dressing. So what I'm going to do is rest my knife off to the side, my other hand on top with that thumb tucked in for safety. And I'm going to do this nice rocking motion. And while I rock, I'm going to bring that knife in an arcing motion as well through that garlic. So I start off to the side here. I'm going to mince and keep bringing it back and forth. You can do this as much as you want to get those cloves of garlic as small as you would desire. Again, save yourself some time. Get your garlic out of a jar, or Natalie, do you have a garlic crusher at home, like a garlic press? Yeah, that is like,
so
it is a little annoying to clean out. That's true. So, you know, you got to pick your battles there. For me, my cutting board's already going to be dirty. My knife is already going to be dirty. So I don't mind doing this. But I also find chopping vegetables to be very therapeutic. I recognize that that is not the case for everybody. So now I got these lovely little chopped cloves of garlic here. You've maybe heard me talk about it before. My favorite kitchen tool, the bench scraper, makes it very easy to pick things up off of our cutting board, right? You see I grabbed all that garlic in one go, and I'm gonna throw it into our mixing bowl here to start our dressing. These potatoes, they are boiling away on the stove here. They are not gonna take too much longer, but while they're going here, I can talk about our dill. I mean, fresh herbs in general, Natalie, like how do we feel about incorporating those?
Right? Everybody like finding ways to lower our sodium intake, reduce the use of dressings and condiments and things. They're so underrated, right? Yeah. And it's a great thing to incorporate for, you know, health risk reduction, but also you were just mentioning with like the aroma, the smells, like it gets you excited to eat. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've said it before on these, but you know, I do all the shopping for these classes at ShopRite locally, you know, so I'm not suggesting that you need to go out and buy the fanciest of ingredients, right? It's whatever's locally accessible to you. If it's accessible to me, it's accessible to you guys because I'm shopping at the same place as y'all. So another time-saving thing here that you can do with your herbs, there's these really thick stems at the bottom here. They're kind of dried out and woody and tough. But then as we get up towards the leaves of the dill, these stems in here are a little bit more light and delicate. So to save myself some time, I am not going to individually take off the leaves of the dill. We would be here until 8 o'clock at night. We would be running late. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself one clean chop at the bottom there. Maybe now I will come in and clean up a few of these at the bottom, but this looks pretty good. And then I can just bunch up this pile here. I might even twist it around itself a little just to get to a more manageable shape. Give this a couple, kind of like my garlic, I'm gonna give this a couple rough chops just so it's more manageable size pieces. And I'm actually gonna do the exact same technique as I just did for mincing my garlic, which is where I'm gonna have my knife off to the side with that hand on top and that nice rocking motion through. This will, forewarning, might turn your cutting board a little green while you do this. My recommendation for that is obviously thoroughly wash our cutting board every time, but also a little bit of lemon juice and baking soda. Get some of those tougher stains out of your cutting boards there. And there we go. Hey, that's an all natural remedy for stained cutting boards. But so I got this pile here. This looks like a lot of dill. This is probably anywhere from about quarter of a cup to half a cup. It really goes a long way into making this potato salad a whole lot more interesting. So again, give that a nice scoop, throw that into my mixing bowl. And I don't want to leave any of this behind. So I'll get that into there. And now just a few other ingredients to add into our bowl. Zoom back out a little bit. So we are going to add some extra virgin olive oil, both some red wine and some apple cider vinegar, some salt and some pepper, and some Dijon mustard. There's a couple other things on my tray in front of me here. We'll worry about those after. I think a lot of these ingredients are kind of self-explanatory, right? We need a little salt and pepper. Salt and pepper makes food taste good. We are not anti-salt with these recipes, right? There's a reason we're saying, hey, we're doing fresh herbs because we don't want you to use salt. We're using fresh herbs because we want you to be less reliant on it.
Right.
I want to talk about how do we feel just about incorporating vinegar into our dishes as well? I know a lot of people are always very curious about fermented foods. Kind of where do we land on those now?
Yeah, great for gut health. Obviously it's such a small amount, so it's really adding the flavor, kind of bringing out other flavors in the dish, but great for gut health. If you like it, great. If you're somebody that struggles with acid reflux or you just really don't do well with apple cider vinegar or red wine vinegar, it's okay to leave out too. But it definitely is a great way to kind of spread that flavor and kind of really, it makes the flavor pop.
Absolutely. Add a little bit of Dijon mustard into there. Kind of that really is going to help bring some of the creaminess due to that lack of mayo that we otherwise have. And then the last thing we're going to add in here is some of our extra virgin olive oil. So this is our really nice, high quality olive oil, right? It says extra virgin on the bottle. We were actually talking about this.
I did something, I didn't know this.
Yeah, so here, let me, I'll zoom back out because all I'm gonna do is whisk here so people can see our lovely faces as we're talking about this. I'm gonna whisk our dressing here. So olive oil that you can buy at the grocery store. You can find olive oil and you can find extra virgin olive oil. The difference is that extra virgin olive oil, it's kind of like the first press of oil that they can get from those olives. So they put them into a press, they crush all the oil out. That oil that comes out, that is extra virgin olive oil. It's got very potent olivey flavor, kind of bitter, a little salty, right? Really great. In my opinion, best used for salad dressings, sauces, nice garnish for something, right? Because it's got that really nice flavor. You can absolutely cook with it, but I think in cooking with it, you're going to lose some of that nice flavor. So that's why they also then sell olive oil, which is they take those same olives that were already pressed, they press them again, so then all that oil comes out, and that is olive oil. It's got a little bit of that olive flavor, not nearly as pronounced. It's significantly less expensive, and I think it is excellent for cooking, right? Because it's got that less pronounced flavor. But we were talking before, nutritionally, they are exactly the same. You could maybe make a case that the extra virgin olive oil has a slightly higher micronutrient content. People will talk about the polyphenols and stuff.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about that. If you are cooking with an unsaturated fat, which is to say a fat that is liquid at room temperature. So both types of olive oil, fantastic.
Avocado oil.
Avocado oil, sesame oil.
Yep.
even canola oil, right?
Yes.
Like we're not afraid of seed oils here. Anyone who tells you to be afraid of seed oils, I think is trying to sell you something. I think, right? There's any of those fats that are liquid at room temperature, they are unsaturated, which means that they have, I mean, a lot of fantastic properties for us when it comes to things like our heart health, right? But they're also, generally speaking, a little more anti-inflammatory, right? Which is a huge thing that people are worried about these days. So
lowers cardiovascular disease,
Yep.
LDL cholesterol. So yeah, there's a lot of confusion. Like these simple topics are just causing more and more confusion online with social media and, you know, influencers and people out there. So ultimately, olive oils, canola oil, avocado oil, those are the preferred oils to cook with because of their unsaturated, their mono unsaturated fat content, which is cardioprotective.
Yep.
So
it's a good thing I'm not wearing glasses because I would be
yeah,
completely
fogged up.
fogged up here. Those are just about done. It's going to time out perfectly. But I'll come back to my cutting board here just so you can see. I mean, this dressing I think like looks lovely. It's nice and bright and herby and green, right? And it's going to look lovely tossed on those potatoes. We'll get a little of that nice color contrast against the red skin. So when those potatoes, I'm going to give them like 2 more minutes. When they are done, I'm going to drain them in the sink. I'm going to put them back into the pot, and I will talk about what I am going to do with them then. But we have a couple minutes here. So for the first time ever, I'm going to make Natalie participate in the chopping part of the chop and chat.
Yeah.
So this is for our third recipe, which is that beautiful cabbage slaw that we are going to be making. So let me zoom in on your cutting board.
Chopping techniques and
I gave you the easy stuff. Don't worry.
That's true.
So, what have we got going on with this cabbage slaw?
All right. So first we're doing that dressing. So I'm going to make sure I get all these right. So we got our olive oil.
Again, extra virgin olive oil, right? Really nice flavor.
Hopefully they can see it okay. Yep. So
yeah, I think that looks perfect.
And then we have that, was it the red wine vinegar?
Yep, well, red wine vinegar. Yeah, so again,
all these together.
Really all vinegars from a nutrition standpoint, I think created pretty much equally. And we're getting really great flavor booster.
Yep. Got the Dijon mustard.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing a lot of like parallels, obviously, with recipes and flavors. And
yeah, which means it's all going to play really nice together on a plate, but also they're going to work great independent of each other as well. You know, if you're like, okay, I'm just going to bring the coleslaw to the barbecue, it's going to pair great with the other flavors.
Yep. Then we have honey, which contains polyphenols and antioxidants and has good antimicrobial properties. Again, still an added sugar. It still has calories and it contains sugar, but a little bit more health benefit than white sugar.
Just watch, I'm sneaking behind you with a hot pot here.
Perfect. And then this mixture of, it's just the salt, pepper. Let me make sure. Salt, pepper, garlic powder, and there was one other thing.
I think that's all I got in there.
All right.
Good. Really small amount of salt. I think it's maybe 1/4 teaspoon in the whole batch there.
Yeah.
But a lot more of that garlic powder. Again, if you're sensitive to the garlic powder, do a little bit less. And while Natalie's mixing that together, I just want to show on the stovetop here. I got the potatoes just came out of their pot. They're sitting in the. I returned them to the pot though after draining. That pot is still hot. That is going to evaporate any steam that is still on these potatoes. So they're going to be a little bit more tender. And then what I'm going to do is I reserved about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. I'm going to pour that over, and then I'm going to give this a shake. And what that's going to do is it's going to turn these potatoes they're going to look a little fluffy when they're done. I'll try to give you a good look, but that will kind of season the potatoes themselves before they even touch that dressing. So it'll have some of that nice kind of vinegar flavor. So if I put those in the camera, you can maybe see they're kind of looking a little fluffy in there just because I was giving them that shake. So sorry to distract from what you were doing, Natalie.
Great.
Hey, your peeling technique on the carrots, I think that looks lovely. Yeah. Yeah. So we're peeling the carrots. Now, from a culinary perspective, I would say we're peeling them because we want that bright orange color in there. But the skin's totally safe to eat, right? Just like you can eat the skin of potatoes. What would be the benefit of leaving the skins if we wanted to keep them on?
Just fiber content and additional nutrients in the skin. But again, if you have, IBS, or if you have issues with breaking down ingredients, this is going to be raw in the recipe. So, you might prefer to take that off just to make it a little bit easier to digest too.
Yeah, for sure. But lovely orange color there. And then we're grading them, right? Just on a box grader, works totally fine to do that. Again, makes life a little bit easier, right? You're not trying to chop these carrots into really small pieces. It's just something where it's like, use the tools that you probably already have in your kitchen.
Yep.
And if it gets to that point where it's like, I'm worried about my fingers, you can stop. We can afford to lose a little bit of carrot. Yeah. And we maybe have talked about it before. It is great to save your vegetable scraps, like the peels of the carrot and maybe that little butt end that you couldn't grate there. You can save that, and you could compost it, but you could also make your own vegetable stock out of it, where you throw a bunch of vegetables into a pot, you cover it with water, you bring to a boil, you simmer for a few hours, cool it down. That's how you make vegetable stock. So we got a nice looking pile of carrots there. That is going to look lovely. Yeah. And it's perfect timing because the chicken's about to come out of the oven.
Throw it in here?
Yeah, throw it right into the bowl with the dressing.
And I know we talked about this before, but it doesn't look like a lot of dressing, right? Yeah. But it's going to go a long way.
Yes. So. Yeah, proportionate to that bowl. The first time we made this, we were like, is that enough dressing?
Yeah.
But I think, by the time we incorporate some of our other veggies in there, it's going to look really nice. So we can leave that there for a second just because I've got the chicken coming out here.
Oh, great.
And so get that onto my cutting board here. I'll zoom back in for a second and then we'll come back out. So I will admit, this is not the most beautiful looking chicken you've ever seen right now, right? The skin isn't on there, so there's really nothing to get like golden brown and crispy. Yeah. And they're not fully cooked all the way yet either. They're close, but they're not fully cooked yet all the way. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finish cooking them with some of this barbecue sauce on here. So we got a little a little bowl of barbecue sauce here. This is homemade barbecue sauce. So I want to talk a little bit about that. First and foremost, Natalie, like, why would we be interested in making our own barbecue sauce? Like, what's wrong with the store-bought ones?
Yeah, obviously nothing wrong, right? But the added sugar content in barbecue sauce tends to be pretty high. So usually when you're at the grocery store, you're going to see the standard I'm not going to say brands because I don't want to advertise, but you're going to see the typical brands, and then you're going to see sugar-free barbecue sauce. So a lot of people can't tolerate sugar-free, the sugar alternatives, the sugar alcohols sometimes upset stomach and cause more GI distress. So the ultimate best thing we can do is gain more control over the ingredients and reduce the amount of added sugar being put into the barbecue sauce. So I think I compared it and looked up a common brand of barbecue sauce, and I think it contained 17 grams of added sugar per 2 tablespoons, which is a typical serving. And then our recipe had 7.
Sounds about right. I think you have the recipe in front of you.
So yeah, 7 grams of added sugar. So it's cut more than half, right? And so that's a great thing. And also we're using all ingredients that we probably already have at our house, in our cabinet, in our refrigerator. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. So let's see how good I am if I remember all of the ingredients that are in here. So the base of it is a jar of tomato paste, like just a regular old 6-ounce jar of tomato paste. There is a little bit of vinegar in there, and then I believe a little bit of maple syrup for some sweetness, and then a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce gives us a flavor component known as umami, kind of like a savory, a little salty kind of flavor. So it goes a long way to making our barbecue taste satisfying. And then there's some spices in there, some water, of course, to get it to the right consistency, but then some spices, namely some chili powder and some smoked paprika, a little salt, pepper, garlic, onion, and pretty simple stuff. Very simple, right?
And that added sugar is coming from the maple syrup.
Correct. Yep. And so if I come back in over here, you'll see what I did is I took a brush and just kind of brushed barbecue sauce over the top here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop these back into the oven for about, I think I can give them about 5 more minutes. They're on the top rack in a pretty hot oven, so that sauce will start to caramelize on there. Give it a little bit more, probably 5 more minutes, and then we will be pretty perfectly timed right towards the end of our program here. So you could certainly, again, you could do these on the grill, on like a copper grill mat.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't necessarily want to turn the oven on, but on the flip side, if the grill is occupied, let's say again, right, you're going to a barbecue at a friend's house or a family member's house, and you're like, okay, the grill's occupied. I don't really want to eat grilled meat. Their oven's probably not occupied. You can pop this in the oven, set a timer so you don't forget about it, but then you can kind of just forget about it, right? Like you can enjoy, go mingle, just brush it with a little bit of barbecue sauce every so often. And that's really all there is to it. So give those, like I said, I'm going to give that about 5 more minutes into there. And then maybe I'll hit them with a little bit more sauce.
I'm going to get this to you now.
Yeah, absolutely. I will take that bowl. So again, this is our dressing and our carrots right now for that slaw. 2 more things I'm going to cut. Do a little bit of red onion into there. Gives it that crunch, some nice flavor. So I just have 1/4 of a red onion. I'm going to take off both ends there. This is a great way to use up if a recipe called for like 1/4 or half of a red onion and you just got some red onion laying around. Great way to use it up. I take off both ends. I'm going to peel off that outermost layer, right, with the skin. So I'm left with this beautiful exposed purple color or red color, right? And I'm going to just now slice into really thin pieces. And then when this, you notice, right, it's starting to now wobble on me a little bit. Just flip it down onto that wider side we've created and come in and make a few more cuts. And then you can see, right, as I even break it apart with my hands here, you get very thin, nice pieces, right? I don't want to bite into this slaw and get like inundated with an entire huge piece of onion. This is nice, small pieces that'll go a long way. So I'll get those into that bowl with the carrots and the dressing as well. And then last, of course, it would not be much of a slaw if we didn't have our cabbage in here. Our recipe calls for about about half a head of a large red or purple cabbage. This one's on the smaller side, and I'm taking off a little bit of the outside here just because those outermost leaves tend to get, kind of the saddest first. So I'm probably just going to throw this whole head of cabbage in there. What you're going to want to do, and this is where, you're going to have to probably put a little muscle into it. You're going to cut this cabbage in half and go through that root end. Now, this can be done by, you can get your knife in there and you can kind of wiggle it back and forth, press down if you need to. It can help to use that nice rocking motion where we start with the back of our knife up and our tip of our knife down a little bit, and we're going to push forward and down at the same time. You'll get into that root, and once you're into that root, you can push straight down. But if you got someone at home who loves you and is strong, they can do this for you too.
Do like me and just get the shredded cabbage in the bag.
There you go. Or get the shredded cabbage in the bag. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, as a whole, I would say you could do the onion.
Carrots, shredded cabbage.
Exactly. You don't even have, exactly. You can make your life so much easier. Yeah. But hey, we're here. It's a cooking show. So we're going to, yeah, exactly. Now we've got our 2 halves of cabbage here. Both of which, that root, right? That large kind of triangle of white bits right there. That is not tender. It's not that you can't eat it. It's just not going to be super good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a little triangle on both sides of that root there. So cut on one side of it and on the other. And then we can actually just kind of give that a little bit of a wiggle and a twist and pull that right out. Do that on both sides here. Like I said, smaller cabbage. So I'm going to use the whole thing. If you have a larger head, probably only need to use about half for this recipe, which means you have half a cabbage laying around to do with other things. Now I'm going to lay this on that nice flat side we've created. I'm going to cut in half again. And now that I've got my quarters here, all these, and again, I'll really zoom in so we can see. Yeah, it's beautiful color, right? All those subdivided layers, right, of that cabbage. I want to expose as much of those as possible. So I'm going to put this at a little bit of an angle, and I'm just going to start working my knife down. Now, absolutely, buy the shredded cabbage. But if you want to practice your knife skills, there are few better things than practicing on your cabbage if you really want your cuts to be nice and even. You can take your time with this. And again, when this starts to get a little wobbly, flip it down onto the wider side you've created and come and make a few more cuts. This is actually, again, I always forget how much cabbage you can actually get out of a cabbage. I might just stick with a half here, especially just because I heard my oven ding behind me. I'll come and do the same thing on this other side. And when this starts to get wobbly, lay it down and come the other way.
But just like all the vibrant colors, even though from this angle, like you're seeing like orange carrots, you're seeing purple cabbage, green, like you're seeing all the colors.
Yeah, and why do we care about the colors of our food?
Well, you think of variety of colors, variety of vibrant colors means variety of vitamins, antioxidants, just these phytochemicals that are so protective. So instead of thinking about, well, what supplements can I take to improve my health? What vitamins can I take to meet all my needs and prevent deficiencies? This is what you need to do. Less is more. Food is enough in most situations, as long as you're absorbing things properly and tolerating food in the right way. But simplify, look to the food, just incorporate these ingredients. And again, cut corners if you need to. Not everybody's going to be a very, tech savvy chef.
Yeah, I'm multitasking. I'm controlling the cameras and chopping here. I ended up doing 3/4 of a head of cabbage here. Obviously, do the whole thing, just do the half, kind of gauge. It's all in this bowl here.
You want to mix that up?
Yeah, let's go ahead. I'll bring this over to you. Pair of tongs. Give that a nice toss into there. I'll move the camera over to you so that everyone can see the nice colors coming together. And the oven was just dinging behind me for our chicken. So I'm gonna give that one more coating of barbecue sauce. In total, this is gonna bring it up to about 35 minutes in the oven. And, just for the sake of food safety above all, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check the internal temperature on these right now. And then we can always give them a couple extra minutes in the oven if we need to. So that is looking gorgeous, by the way. Yeah, nice bright colors in there. And again, it's not like swimming in the dressing, but it's very evenly. Yeah.
Perfect. And it's so even with that thin dressing.
Yeah.
It just coats everything so nicely. So you're not getting like the chunks of mayo and.
So you can see a little, the sauce is kind of starting to like caramelize and brown a little bit. What I'm gonna do is, my hands are clean, but at home, if you want to put a glove on while you do this, I'm just gonna put my temperature probe in there, my instant read digital thermometer. I stick it kind of at an angle into the thickest part of that breast. I want to try to kind of be near the bone, right? But not necessarily touching the bone. And these are registering right now at about 145, which is a little low for chicken. Chicken is especially one of those meats where you don't want to mess around. There is no such thing as medium rare chicken. We definitely want to cook our chicken to a safe internal temperature of 145. I was reading what was on the thermometer, of 165. Cook your chicken to 165 degrees Fahrenheit internal. And like I said, you can afford to overcook your chicken thighs a little bit. So if you don't have the thermometer and you're like, well, I'm just going to go until there's no pink on the inside. You know what? That totally works. Get this back into the oven. And you know what? It's 6:17 right now. I'm going to give this 8 more minutes. We're going to let these go, and then we'll be able to do a little plate up right at the end, I think. Time always flies while we're doing these. So let's see. Our slaw looks great. Do you want to transfer it over to one of those little white serving bowls?
Yeah.
And then while Natalie is getting that plated up, I'll clear up my workstation here a little. There's one last ingredient I haven't talked about here. These lovely green onions or scallions. Grocery stores had really nice looking ones, which I'm really excited about. These are going to be for our potato salad as well. It's going to give it a little crunch, nice little garnish, a nice little pop of color as well. So what I'm going to do is I got there are 3 green onions here. I'm going to take off these topmost ends where they're a little dried out. They're kind of get sad first. But then you can use the entire length of that green onion, probably until it turns pure white, all the way down here at the end. And I'm going to cut these into just nice little rings. So again, I'll zoom in nice and tight here so you can see. Got my nice claw grip with those fingers curled underneath to keep those fingertips safe. And I'm going to cut into these nice slices of green onion. I mean, green onion is especially one of those ones where it's like, if you like the onion flavor, maybe you can't tolerate like the raw red onion. Green onion can be an especially great way to get that flavor and the crunch. I just think they look really pretty as well. So now what I'm going to do is put those off to the side because I think they're best stirred in at the end. I've got my bowl of my dressing here. I'm going to go ahead and dump my potatoes into there. There we go. And just give those a toss. Now this is about 2 pounds of potatoes.
Oh, that looks so good.
This is like I'm so excited for this. Yeah. Hey, that wouldn't be a very balanced plate, right? Even though it is lovely. I mean, look at the colors that we've got in there. And then I think what I'll do is we'll transfer these to a serving platter as well. And then I'll garnish with some of these green onions. So could you give me that other serving bowl, please? And while I am transferring those up, since we got a couple minutes on the chicken, are there any questions, comments, anything in the chat that we can address? Okay, no worries there. Again, y'all, if you have questions, you can throw them in at any time. You're not gonna offend us by asking questions because I think we kind of covered a lot of our bases here, but there's probably always stuff that we're not thinking about, right? That y'all are thinking about. So I'm gonna do here with my potatoes, give this a little of that sprinkle of the green onion on top, clear some stuff out of the way here. When that chicken comes out, we'll have a spot for that, but I think we can put potato salad right there, slaw right there. And then if you want to give me that serving platter for the chicken, I'll have that ready to go. Let's see. I know we had come prepared with some of our talking points before. Is there anything that we did not cover that we were looking to talk about? I can think of one.
Covered it, but
yeah, I can think of one thing. Did we talk about when cooking on the grill? Did we talk about doing like the Blackstone, the like a flat cooking top, right? Very popular. Dad maybe got one for Father's Day this year, right? Like
and scrambled eggs, and it's
absolutely. And again, keeping in mind that the main concern with grilling meat is that it's being exposed to open flame, right? Cooking on like a Blackstone or any of those flat cooktops is really no different than cooking stuff in a pan on your stove. It's not in direct contact with the flame. There is that barrier. It's never going to get those like dark burnt grill marks. So absolutely.
Cooks evenly.
Yes.
Like, great.
It makes very easy cleanup.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
We use the avocado oil on it, right? That's a nice oil.
Absolutely.
It's a really alternative.
Awesome.
Great.
I think it's from the other side of the room, but I think I saw a question come through.
To add more protein to the slaw and salad, could we swap the mustard with like cottage cheese?
Oh, interesting question. Okay, adding more protein to the slaw. Let's see.
Pumpkin seed, like I mean, I would think of like seeds.
Yeah, which are gonna not only give us a little bit of protein, but also some healthy fats, more fiber in there, right? All would be an excellent choice. If you are gonna make a dressing with cottage cheese, that's the very popular thing to do right now. I would say blend it, right? Rather than whisking it by hand, because cottage cheese has the curds, right? So if you have a powerful enough blender, you can basically smooth those curds back into the consistency, and then it'll just kind of be like a nice creamy dressing, which I think it could absolutely work well. I wouldn't go overboard with it, and I think it would probably be best on the potatoes rather than the slaw.
I could see the potatoes.
I think the slaw really wants like that lighter, like vinegar dressing, whereas the potato salad, the mustards give it like some creaminess. And so I think it would work best on the potato salad. Yeah, excellent question though. And then
cottage cheese is so popular now.
Yeah, cottage cheese is definitely like the trendy thing. Yeah, great question. And let's see. I feel like I had another thing that I was gonna say, and it has totally escaped me.
I'm a huge fan of like having in the pantry just like the sunflower seeds, the pumpkin seeds, like all those things you can just sprinkle in easily, because when we look at like cancer risk reduction, more plant-based the better, right? For heart health, for cholesterol lowering, for weight management, all of the things, right? So if you can incorporate those things easily, when I see this slaw, I think of like, oh, okay, adding some kind of a seed or nut, if you're able to tolerate that, to add that plant protein component, move away from always thinking of like meat and dairy for that protein, but looking for other things that you can incorporate.
Totally. I also think the slaw would be like a great accompaniment to like some kind of like grain bowl, right? Where you could take a whole grain, a quinoa, a brown rice, something, right? As your base, which is gonna, again, it's got carbs in it, of course, because it's a grain. It's got fiber, it's got protein, again, filled with vitamins and minerals because it's the whole grain. It hasn't been refined out. Have that as your base, throw some of the slaw on there. And then you could do, an animal protein. You could do cooked chicken, anything like that. You could also then like do tofu or
Yeah.
something, or you
Shrimp. You could do like a shrimp rice bowl.
absolutely, or again, or then maybe you're like, okay, I am gonna make like a more creamy sauce. Again, you could blend like the cottage cheese or something. I think would be totally fine. Oh, roasted chickpeas, nice and crunchy. Yeah. Which is interesting because, right, it's like the slaw we also think of as being crunchy, but it's like it's a different way, right? It's crisp versus like a roasted chickpea is going to be crunchy. It's going to be really good. All right, there's like 30 seconds left on that chicken. Before I pull it out, was there anything else? Okay, great. Well, then let me pull that chicken out of the oven. Find my wherever I keep putting down my oven mitts too. And like I said, I'm pretty confident on that internal temperature because it was very close. This is a very hot oven, just about as hot as you would have your grill, actually. And you'll actually start to see if I zoom back in to my cutting board here. Oh no. That is not any better than it may have died, which would be just such hilarious time. It's all, let me hear. Let me see your microphone pack. Oh, dead battery. You know, it was fully charged an hour ago. Okay. Well, too much talking. All right. Well, I'm going to hold my microphone here and then Natalie, you can speak into it.
I'll hold it while you're cooking. All right.
Slide over here. We're doing this. It's fun.
This is improv.
Yep. All right. But anyway, if I was mentioning we've got the chicken here. You can maybe see very slightly that some of that sauce has started to kind of caramelize on the side there. All right. This is there's always got to be something, right? Last time you couldn't stop coughing. I messed up the recipe the first time we did one of these. I think people come for not only for the education and the delicious recipes. Exactly. Yep. All right. Beautiful. I will take that back. There we go. Let me zoom my microphone back out here. All right. Lovely. So here, let me zoom in on our nice little, I would say like the feast that we've prepared over here, right? And our nice oven roasted chicken thighs. We've got our nice crunchy slaw, a potato salad. And what we would do ultimately is we would take all of these, we would throw them onto a plate together. Right? Little potato off to the side. I'd say a nice hearty amount of that slaw. And then one of our chicken thighs, right? When we're thinking about kind of the recommendation, the dietary guidelines for Americans, right? So that about 50% of our plate is fruits and vegetables, right? More than 50% of the food that we've cooked here tonight is a fruit or a vegetable, right? We're really loaded up on veggies. I would say we get a nice fibrous source from our nice starchy potatoes, a little bit lighter with our slaw here. And then, yeah, it looks lovely. I'll give you that.
And when we look at, cancer risk reduction in particular, with the American Institute for Cancer Research, their guideline is really to fill 3/4 of the plate, or sorry, 2/3 of the plate with plant-based foods. So, the potatoes considered plant-based, cabbage, slaw, right, carrots, all plant-based foods. And then that 1/3 of the plate should be like a meat or an animal protein. So this is very consistent across the board with lowering cancer risk, lowering health risk in general. But just trying to get more color on the plate is a big goal for us.
And I'm going to go grab a spare battery for Natalie's microphone real quick. Natalie, if there's any other questions in the chat before we wrap up, if you read them out, I will repeat them so that people know, and then we can talk about them. And if not, I'm just getting you batteries so that you're able to say goodbye to people. All righty. It's a good thing I know where the batteries are. Here, take that microphone off your back and just pop open that front panel right there. You're getting live tech support here. Take the batteries out, put the other ones in. All righty. Like I said, folks, there's always got to be a little something. Otherwise, I mean, you'd think we were too good at this if we never had any tech problems. And let's see if you talk again.
Can you hear me okay now?
I see the little green bar moving, which is a good sign.
I think we're good.
Awesome. All righty, how we do on time? Hey, right, we're right about at 6:30. Fantastic. Anything else?
No other questions coming through.
Okay, wonderful. I think we are all set then. Great. Well, thank you all so much for joining tonight. We're about to dive in and eat all of this delicious food, I think. Yeah, unless anything last minute came through. Okay, fantastic. The recording of this will be posted on the YouTube channel,
Yep.
right? The recipes should have already been sent out, but if you did not receive them, please let us know and we will make sure you get a copy. And if you ever have any questions about anything Teaching Kitchen related, please reach out to us at it's teachingkitchen@ynhh.org. I monitor that mailbox, so we can certainly answer any questions you may have. And we had another email, right?
Yeah, it's the canceranswers@yale.edu.
Yep. And I think Renee said she was going to throw both of those in the chat. If people were curious about those, again, ask questions. If you are a patient of the Yale New Haven Health System, you have any Yale New Haven Health affiliated provider, you can get a referral to the Teaching Kitchen. These classes are free, in person, 5 days a week right now at various times, and we do delicious stuff like this. So look forward to hopefully seeing you in the kitchen. You will definitely see us again for another chop and chat with Max and Nat. But yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the rest of your summer.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.